Good morning, Barbados, good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, 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 morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, morning, Barbados, good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, morning, Barbados, good morning. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Morning to you.
Good morning on this wonderful Wednesday, already the 14th day of August 2024. I'm Tisha Hines. I'll be here with you until just around 8 o'clock this morning. I certainly hope you've been having a good week so far. We are still reeling in the wakes of a fantastic series in Paris, right? Olympics 2024. Very, very interesting times. I don't know about you, but my timeline is flooded with breakdancing or something like it. I don't know if you've been looking on, but very, very interesting things happening. We are very proud of our athletes and the athletes from all across the region, of course, for the great work that they did. It takes a lot to be able to get to those heights when it comes to sport and competing. So we definitely have to acknowledge them. And we are going to continue to acknowledge our athletes this weekend for the Carifta Triathlon and Aquathlon happening here in Barbados. If you don't know, we have won 2 years in a row. So who knows, we might make it a triple. And, oh, that's 2 fingers, 3. And win again this time around. So make sure you come out to the Mighty Griner Highway and represent for our athletes this weekend as they compete. There are over 190 athletes who are going to be here in Barbados representing over 20 countries. So we definitely need to come out and support our athletes. Some of them are going to be here again today. So we look forward to hearing from them, sharing with them, and pepping them up for this weekend's presentation. We're also going to head down to St. Andrew as we tell you all about what the Parish Independence Committee in St. Andrew will be taking on. Katrina Kelman is here. She's the Public Relations Officer, and she will be updating us on something very important as we look toward the November celebration of our independence here in Barbados. Now, you know that is a big deal, so you want to make sure you get in on the action in the early. Plus, Chetwin Stewart is going to be here with us. We certainly look forward to wrapping up the Cropover Festival just off the heels of that. And there's still some fetes going on and limes and parties. So, I mean, it officially has wrapped up for the 50th anniversary. However, still a few fringe events happening. But Chetwin is going to join us to kind of make it official, cut off all his bands. He's one of these people who takes the bands from all the fetes and this and that. And I begged him to keep them on just an extra week to come share with us. We're going to do a wind down or wind up of Cropover, as the case might be, and have a good time reflecting on all the wonderful things that happened in this 50th anniversary of our Cropover Festival. We're also going to be speaking with the Human Resources Management Association of Barbados. Mr. Devonish is back this week, and Dwayne Devonish, he's going to be talking to us all about the National Workplace Wellness Policy. Now, we started talking about that a little while ago, and we definitely want to develop on that a little bit more. This week also marks a very interesting week and something that we need to talk more about. Breastfeeding week. Well, it's past. So we're going to do a bit of a review on it, but it's never too late to talk about breastfeeding because that's life. You know, I know that you would have grown up hearing breast milk is the best milk, but there aren't always ideal conditions to be able to support women in their need to breastfeed and take care of their children. And there are other things that we need to look at as well. So we'd like to welcome Nakisha Scanterbury and Crystal Holder, both registered nurses and midwives. And they're here to review the week and look forward to how we can really get in step with, you know, encouraging women more in the work environment, outside of the work environment, generally to be able to breastfeed. So good morning to you ladies. Good to have you with us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. So let me start with you, Nurse Canterbury. Let's talk a little bit about the week and talk about what happened and why it really is important to have such a week and observe it.
Right. Good morning, Barbados.
Good morning.
Breastfeeding Week, something that is celebrated annually from the 1st of August to the 7th of August. People all over the world, or what I should say, midwives all over the world, we acknowledge Breastfeeding Week. We acknowledge that breastfeeding is vital. For us this year, it was kind of a little bit low-key in that last year we celebrated. We had more activities going on than this year. But what we have done this year to acknowledge Breastfeeding Week is we had a competition among the wards where we decorated B1. For those who don't know, the obstetric block, B1, B3, labor ward, and B4 also got on board this year. The team for this year closing the gap. So each ward had this concept where we would have decorated accordingly to the, what should I say, according to the team. And that went really well for those who came from CBC and actually took pictures, actually saw the showcase of not only the team, but nurses being creative and producing that idea, that concept of breastfeeding. And why is it best? Because it's our milk that we are giving to our children. And we all know, let me just re-emphasize the benefits of breastfeeding here. You know, it is good for not only the mother who benefits from giving her child a part of her, but for the baby with the first, as we call, stepping stones, nutrients, vitamins, antibodies, and also those early stepping stones that cater to the child, that when we hear of our nutritionist speaking, prevent obesity and morbidity in childhood. And so it is important that we keep pushing breastfeeding.
All right, that's wonderful stuff. Quite a mouthful, but a lot said for good reason.
Yes.
And we hear so much about breastfeeding. We've heard throughout the years, but I think at this stage we must elevate the conversation to talk a little bit more about the fact that it isn't always a very accommodating environment for mothers to be able to breastfeed. So I would imagine that, you get to hear all the stories from the moms about the challenges that they might experience from going back to work, to people just even frowning on the act in public. So how do you work as nurses to kind of reinforce the moms the importance of doing it? It must be quite a task in some instances.
Yes, it is a task because some people come with ideas before they are pregnant about surrounding breastfeeding, things that they will have heard from others. So what we try to do from the antenatal period, we don't wait until after the person has the baby, but throughout the antenatal period we do classes. So even our antenatal clinic, they offer classes on Wednesdays via Zoom. So if anyone wants to find out any information, they can be able to contact the antenatal clinic at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital and speak to midwife Sherindal Cooper. She runs that program. So we start from there because having information before, so trying to dispel some of those myths so when your time comes that you're able to have a foundation before it starts. Also, as the person comes to the labor and delivery room, we start from within the first hour. So we actually do skin to skin. Skin to skin means as the baby has delivered, it goes directly onto the skin, which is one of the things that are recommended for a baby-friendly hospital, which we are. We also try to initiate breastfeeding within that first hour. And when the patients go on now to the postnatal ward, which is ward B3, the midwives there try to assist, trying to assist early, so when persons go home, they're able to have that knowledge before they leave us. I wish we had more support. I mean, there is some support when persons go home, but I think there could be a little bit more support to women when they go.
For sure. And then, I think we've mentioned it a few times in the conversations we've had. Sometimes we have this ideal idea of breastfeeding that you're going to,
Natural.
you know, have the baby and all of a sudden pop right out and onto the breast. And that is how it works, and that's just not how it works for everybody.
No, it doesn't.
So what are some of the common challenges that that women face when it comes to breastfeeding that we're working to kind of push aside to make it a whole lot easier?
Support. Let's just sum it right all up to support, because if you don't have that support, and then what should I say, that desire to do it, it will be a challenge. So you will have some persons that know without a shadow of a doubt, I want to breastfeed.
What are some of the deterrents, though? You say you have to want to do it. So there are some people who determine before I'm not doing it.
Yes.
And what are some of these reasons?
My breasts.
Okay.
So the change in appearance of my breasts. How I am accustomed to having upright breasts. After I'm finished breastfeeding, what will happen? And I find that that is one of the common things among the young, and then the patients. So that's why I say support. Because once you have that support, then those little things you can get over. Yeah, you agree?
Yeah. You were nodding in agreement. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And sometimes it is, as Nakisha said, the patience. People sometimes don't have the time because they have to do so much other things. So it's not everyone that will have a husband, or it's not everyone will have a mother that could come over and help to cook or clean. So then persons have to take that time now that they would have been focusing on sitting and breastfeeding, they have to now do other things. So if we have, as Nakisha said, the main thing, support around persons or encouragement, we would be able, like, you cannot get over that support that persons will have.
Yeah, I can imagine. And there are quite a few misconceptions when it comes to breastfeeding too. I think it's important to kind of dispel some of the misconceptions that people have about breastfeeding. That might be one of them, because that there's no guarantee that, you know, it will change your breast, but certainly it can be a challenge if you're making milk and then you're not necessarily giving it to baby. What can happen? I would imagine it can create some challenges health-wise.
Yes, please. So you can end up having engorged breasts, mastitis, but those things are further along the line of not breastfeeding. So when those challenges do arise, we do ask the nurse, sorry, not the nurse, the patient, or even before them, if you are having challenges with breastfeeding, don't stay at home. There are polyclinics in your area. There are health sisters in your area that are there to support you, to help with latching on. So when you get to that stage now where you have mastitis or engorged, let's get to the engorged breast before the mastitis, then there's a problem. And at that point in time, you really will be seeking health care, because it will start to manifest. Your body will start to feel sick, have fever, etc. So before it reaches that stage and you know that you're having challenges, just reach out. We're here to help.
Absolutely.
I would say one of the challenges is that a lot of persons think, well, I wouldn't have enough breast milk. I think that is a challenge people always have. But we always have to remember that breast milk is produced by a supply and demand system.
Okay.
So the more you demand your breast to produce the milk by putting the baby on or by expressing the breast milk with a pump, then the more milk is produced. So what persons do, they stop breastfeeding because of sore nipples, they stop breastfeeding because their breast is getting engorged. But if you don't get the milk off, or if you don't demand your body to produce the milk, then you want to have sufficient milk to survive for the baby.
And what's some of the fallout? Let's talk about the other side of things. I know we mentioned the benefits, but early giving the children, maybe some people don't have a choice, but let's reinforce how important it is to give baby breast milk in terms of, you know, them growing and thriving, as opposed to maybe the cereals and so on that are off the shelf.
We have to remember that breast milk is natural. So compared to formula, breast milk will always give those key nutrients at every single level. So what your breast will produce at 1 month will not necessarily be what your breast will produce at 3 months. So every time your baby develops, your breast milk actually changes with the baby. It's also good for the stomach because the formula is a little harsh on the stomach. So when you breastfeed your baby, it's a little easily digestible. So we starting off with the foundations, making sure that the breast milk is adequate for the baby at each stage of its life.
Wonderful. What are some of the things that mothers are saying to you when they go back into the workplace? Because we heard about not necessarily having a space for them to be able to breastfeed. And I know when I travel, it's a little different. There are actually allocated spaces. I see allocated spaces for breastfeeding, for changing baby and so on. So it's very accommodating. We don't always see that here. So I know that can be a big deterrent for mothers as well.
It is. And I believe that that's why this year's theme is so important, closing the gap. For me, as a young mom, I have a son who's 1 year old. Returning to work, well, obviously, as we are a breastfeeding hospital, the hospital have provided different areas that we who are breastfeeding are interested in expressing that we can do so. There's a room at antenatal clinic, there's a room in IMB1, there's a room in staff clinic. And so with this medium, I'm hoping that those employers can also do the same in recognizing that it is important that if you have a member of staff who is pregnant or has a young child, that you can designate an area in your institution that your employee can feel comfortable and sit down and express and know, well, what I'm doing is making a difference.
Yeah. What's your number one care kit or care tip for mothers who are lactating and maybe going back out to work in terms of taking care of themselves? Because I know, as you mentioned, it comes down to time. You know, and from my own experience, when I came back to work, it was crazy because I was coming back to work for these kinds of times, you know, on air for 5 a.m. For radio and so on. So to wake up at 3 a.m. and express milk and to leave and then to get back home by the time it's midday, it's time to go again. I know all of that can be challenging.
Yeah.
So what would be your best advice for mothers in terms of taking care of themselves and kind of, you know, getting through the challenges of breastfeeding, knowing that that's the best route to go?
I would say plan. Don't wait until you are going back out to work next week to then determine what you're going to do. So you want to sensitize your work colleagues that, you know, I'm still breastfeeding, I still want to have that time to express. So if you know you're going back out to work next month, you can start to store the milk, because if you pump and you store, you can be able to leave it up in the freezer for about 6 months. So you have enough time that you can be able to store and put aside and say, okay, this is my milk that I'm going to leave for my baby at home, so that when that time comes, you don't have to worry about getting up in the morning and have to pump that milk the same morning. You have milk stored from before.
Why didn't anybody tell me that? You know, because I guess we think maybe that you want to do fresh. It has to be fresh milk, but 6 months?
6 months.
Better make sure that fridge is working.
Yes, it has to be working. So it can stay, if you pump, you can leave it for 4 hours on the counter. Then if you put it in the fridge, you can stay about 3 days. And in the deep freeze for about six months. So you have enough time that you can be able to take it down. Obviously, you have to write the date and the time on the bag, so you know that you're using the older milk first.
Now, Scantbury, how long should you breastfeed? And I know this is another area where people maybe frown on mothers, children talking and teeth, and you know, they're alert enough to kind of say, this is what I want, and some of them go grab it, they don't even ask. And people are like, okay, he or she has enough sense to be off that now. You know, that's kind of like something you hear in the community. So, you know, how long should you breastfeed?
The World Health Organization stimulates that you should breastfeed exclusively up to 6 months, but you can continue for 2 years. And I have met women who proudly stated, my son, and mostly it's boys, my son has breastfed for up to 2 years. So they got some who are willing and who are excited and happy to say, well, I've done this and my child is healthy now.
What are some of the other residual benefits outside of nutrition that breastfeeding, can kind of matter out to parent, to mother, and child as well? You talked about the skin to skin, which really, harkens to the latching on and making that connection and so on. But I know there are benefits that far outweigh just nutrition when it comes to breastfeeding.
So another benefit is bonding. So you take that time that you spend with your baby from day one. And this bonding also helps creating a calming environment. So it produces those endorphins, that oxytocin that allows both mother and baby to be relaxed. So then you have a child that is developing with a relaxing environment instead of a very hostile environment, because breastfeeding is supposed to be something nice and calm. So if you could get it to that point, you're also promoting a calming environment as the baby develops.
Very interesting stuff. And I know for breastfeeding is one of these things that we hear so much about changes in technology and innovation and so on. Are there any new methods available to mums? I know the pumps, probably at the turn of the century, the automatic ones,
Yes.
that was like woohoo.
Yes.
Outside of the actual physical pumping that had to be done. But have there been any recent advancements for mothers to help them in that regard in terms of breastfeeding?
I would say the milk catchers. I mean, you have different brands, but you have one that you can attach to your breast. So while you're sitting, it's catching the letdown. You can be breastfeeding from one breast, and the catcher is able to catch the residue, instead of it going into the breast pads and you're just taking it off and throwing it away, that residue goes into the catcher, and you're able to feed the baby that. You also have
milk banks.
Yeah,
But we don't have that.
we don't have any milk banks here in Barbados, but in other countries you have milk banks that persons, if you have excessive amount of milk, you can be able to take donate your milk.
Pardon?
Yes.
Not here in Barbados.
Not here in Barbados, but there are other places that do that. So that persons who don't have enough milk, they're able to go. The same way how we donate blood.
It's not the same. Well, for overseas, for some
Milk
women
banks.
for some women who are determined to have breast milk over formula, they do go to milk banks. And obviously the milk will be tested just as how blood is tested before supplied.
I must say this is the first time I've ever heard that.
Yes.
And I didn't think there were many areas that I hadn't heard about, but milk banks.
Yes.
All right, I'm still stuck on that. Yeah. All right, so looking forward, outside of the week, obviously we weren't on air last week because usually we do the work together. But outside of that, and looking forward to the coming weeks and months as you continue to advocate for breastfeeding, what would you generally share with, women who have babies, who are breastfeeding now and who might be a little frustrated, those who are on the fence in terms of whether they would want to do it or not, and even women who haven't had children as yet, about breastfeeding?
I would say to seek information before. It's always good to have the information, but then you need that support. So seek out the support. You have a lot of different avenues. You have a lot of private people are always on IG. You can go on Instagram, type in breastfeeding support, breastfeeding consultations, and I'm sure a number of persons will pop up into your feed. You can also reach out to us at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Ward B3, or the Antenatal Clinic. You know, just ask a question if they might tell you to come in, and let's see if we can be able to assist you. And if you're not getting it done in the way that you would expect, don't get down and think that, oh, all is lost. You can reach out to us and we can see where we could be able to help you.
Yeah, and from you, anything that you'd like to add?
That is achievable. Speaking as one who have done it, I will let the ladies know that it is achievable. Yeah, with its challenges and all, because I too had my challenges, it is achievable.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's important to have conversations.
Yes.
Because we don't exist in a utopia, you know, and a lot of the times I think looking on, we feel as though if it doesn't happen as we expect it to on television, so on television, here's the baby, there's the milk, it happens just like that. For a lot of us, there are indeed challenges.
There are
So just to talk about it and know that there is support, I think will make the difference. We had a caller who is asking you about the best alternative. For some women, they're not able to make milk. So, you know, what's the best alternative to breast milk is what the caller was asking.
Well, because we are supposed to be a baby-friendly hospital, we're supposed to advocate for breastfeeding. So
we don't have any milk banks here.
we don't have any milk banks, but what it would say that you can speak to your pediatrician and they can recommend what specific formula or any other thing that you can be able to give your baby. But we're not giving the baby any oats or barley water or even water in general. Babies should not use water under the first six months. So if there's any formula, you can speak to your pediatrician and they can recommend.
When you say babies are not supposed to use water, what do you mean? Water exclusively?
Yes, water, like putting boiling water and putting it in a bottle. Babies should not drink water under 6 months because it's high in sodium, so then that can off-balance the sodium level in the babies.
Really? Because you know that people give babies water.
Water, yes.
Yes.
And you're not supposed to give babies water?
On the
Thank
6
goodness
months.
my daughter's alive, man. I gave her so much water.
Many of us are like, many of us.
Yeah, but it's good to hear these things because the truth is we really don't discuss. We really don't discuss these things in the open, and it's like a big secret. I mean, these days, younger women are far more open with their bodies, and you know, they're doing the maternity shoots. You know, back in the day, you know, when these old girls here now talking about back in the day, you know, people expected you to kind of cover up and wear bigger clothes so that you couldn't see the form of the tummy and hide when it came to breastfeeding and stuff like that. So I would imagine things and times have changed to be a little more accommodating, and that has made all the difference.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to thank you both for coming in and sharing with us. And you know, generally it's interesting that we don't often get to share why we went into certain fields. So for you, why did you go into midwifery and you know, decide on nursing? You're laughing already. Was it a chance occasion, or is it something that you decided this is where I want my career to go?
Well, how it started for me, you know, as a child you had nurses in your family. So as you look at those, you say, well, this is something I want to be. And then when you become a young adult, you realize, well, BCC was offering the course, and it was the only course that I got stipend. It was the only course that you could get a little cash in your pocket at the same time. So yes, I went for it then. But then, you know, as I went through the course, then you realize, yeah, my ability to care for people. And then as I reached my pinnacle, as I can call it, my pinnacle in nursing, and when I went to E&E, I applied to do midwifery. And from here, it just
kept going. Oh, that's beautiful. What about you, Nurse Holder?
Just like Nikisha, I have a lot of nurses in my family, Yeah, my great aunt is also a midwife. So when when you see people around you having these occupations, you aspire to be a nurse or a midwife or anything in health care. So when I applied for the nursing, I realized as you go through the program, it's like, yes, this is something I really want to do. Also, when I did obstetrics in our third year, and we went on the labor ward, I was like, yes, I think this is where I want to be. And as you went through, obviously you had to go through surgery and medicine first. And when I started in midwifery, my aspect, I really like the teaching aspect of it, making sure that persons are well informed and educated. So especially since we work on the labor and delivery suite, when the baby's delivered, the excitement that you see on persons' faces, the joy, other family members coming and very excited, that makes you feel good that you are a part of somebody's journey.
And you must have some really, really interesting stories when it comes to breastfeeding and delivery and otherwise. So I'm going to let you kind of line them up for the next time you come back. Yeah, it's always interesting to share because, as I mentioned before, sometimes you feel like, oh, I'm out here alone. This has never happened to anybody else. But there are other people who have experienced, who will experience, and who might be going through similar challenges at that time. What are some of the support systems that are in place? I know you told the last caller when we mentioned to reach out to the clinic, but you've mentioned throughout that there's support for mothers generally for breastfeeding. So what are some of the systems, what are some of the ways that mothers can kind of reach out for that support that you're talking about?
They can call the antenatal clinic at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. They can also reach out to any of the polyclinics. I'm sure that most of the polyclinics have support groups. And then there are also private persons. As I said, you can go on Instagram and you can be able to type in, reach out. We have associations around that is able to give that support. That's the only ones that are coming to my head right now.
All right, excellent. Any final words from you, Nurse Canterbury? She's a nurse of very few words. So, that's why I'm pressing you.
And here I am thinking, no, please.
Yeah, but I can tell that you both love what you do, and I think that's the most important thing. I think that we need to set systems in place more. Ironically, we're talking with the human resources people about the upcoming human resources policy next.
Yeah, that's why we're going to
so I mean, like that's the perfect way that we can kind of wrap up this interview by talking about how we can support women more in the workplace. So it's not almost like a bother, a humbug for them to be able to do a basic bodily function that's necessary for their child to thrive.
And you can call it something like a right. It's my right to breastfeed. It's my right to express. And so when that human resource officer comes in, we can start channeling our conversation. Well, not we, because I won't be here. But you can remember us and say, as a mother, do you think that it will be necessary that you start to have policies in the workplaces, or see that it's important to have policies in the workplace where your workers know about breastfeeding, and let's make room for it.
Yes. Well, it's actually going to be Dr. Dwayne Devonish, and he is going to be talking about the National Workplace Wellness Policy. So we definitely will, continue on and see if
there's
that
benefits
is a
in there
major
for
part of it.
women. It decreases our risk for breast cancer and ovarian cancer. See? So you see, wellness.
She's talking now. It's time to wrap up the interview, and now she's talking. She didn't want to talk before, but that's okay. You're warming up to me. That's important. I want to thank you both for coming in, nurses Nakisha Scantlebury and Crystal Holder. And I'm sure you had a great week last week with all the activities that you did, and we most certainly will continue to share as well as we advocate that breast milk is the best milk under the theme for this year,
Closing the gap.
Closing the
breastfeeding
gap.
for all.
Breastfeeding
Support
for all. Thank you both for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, time
you.
for a break. When we come back, we're looking at that workplace wellness policy. That's next.
Morning, morning.